It's time now to deal with a very nagging issue. This is an issue I'm a bit passionate about. The issue of begging. If you pass or you use any of the streets, high streets in Accra, you'd realize that the issue of begging is quite a situation that we all need to pay attention to. You see the pictures on your screen right now. This is a young boy, should be about 10 years, who should be in class, should get the life that he deserves. But he's there begging on the streets just to get something for himself and the family. There again, you see another woman, physically challenged, should be in her 50s, if I'm not wrong, also begging on the streets, trying to make ends meet. And these young boys, I'm sure, have a dream of becoming footballers in the future. With their jerseys, I'm sure you can tell. And 9 and 10, that should be another Bedipele or an Andrea Yu in the making. But there they are in the streets of Accra, begging. They are not in the classrooms. That's the concerns. But I'm sure you've heard stories about some beggars, especially in Accra, who are multi-millionaires and own significant assets such as fleets of commercial vehicles, commercial properties, all made from the coins and some small notes people drop in their begging bowls. But did you know that begging is a crime? Yes, I'm sure you're raising your eyebrows. Yes, it is. And there's a law that prescribes fines and possible 3-month jail term. Despite the existence of this law, I bet you also didn't know about it. Many of you don't know. But in spite of the existence of this law, many continue to flout the provisions, whilst law enforcement agencies just look on and sometimes join in the crime by giving to beggars on our streets. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against it. I'm not saying you shouldn't give, but there's a law. A law is a law. You recall former Gender and Children Protection Minister, Social Protection Minister, Otiko Afisa-Jaba. She actually waged a war on begging just 3 months before leaving office. Well, today on The Pulse, we'll speak to a law student who's done some work on the area of begging and this law that's in existence, that's on our tables. He's exposed a weakness in the system and is calling for reforms. But before then, let's listen to the former Gender and Social Protection Minister, Otiko Afisa-Jaba, on that war against begging.
In order to comprehensively deal with the issue of streetism and the Kaya menace, the ministry has recently launched an Operation Get Off the Streets Now for a Better Life campaign, which is aimed at mapping and creating a database of these groups to ascertain their numbers and characteristics with the aim of designing tailor-made programs to address the varied causes of their challenges. The program will entail advocacy and sensitization at the community level for all children of school-going age to be in school, integration of children of school-going age into the school system, reintegration with families with psychological support, adult literacy, skills training, entrepreneurship development, financial literacy, and enhanced access to financial services. Some of them are foreigners, and so we are engaging Ministry of Foreign Affairs to find out whether we can send them back. If we can't, then in discussions, they will also have to be part of the shelters that we are talking about. Some of the children ran away from home. Some of them are orphans. And in discussions, we'll be able to find out whether there was abuse at home. Is that why they ran away? I met a young boy who had actually run away from home from Togo, and he walked and hitchhiked his way to Accra. Another boy comes from Ashama. Why is he on the streets? He said he didn't have a uniform. So we were able to locate his family, reintegrate him back, only for him to run back after 2 months. He was brought back to me. I asked him why. He said somebody stole his uniform. And so you have quite a number of recalcitrant children. And it's not something that you can just finish in one day. We have a 5-year plan to be able to work out, because these are sensitive areas. Why does a child keep running away from home back onto the street? And it's not good enough to just send them back. You need to have discussions with their families and reorient their minds. the psychological issues. And so we have a 5-year program to be able to organize all these things and eradicate streetism. It doesn't mean that they will no longer go back, but we will also talk a lot about the fact that it's a crime to actually be on the streets. And we're also in discussions with the various media houses to educate our people that begging is an offense, and that those of us who give to beggars must not continue to do that. And those of us who allow the young boys to clean the windscreens must also stop. Those of us who buy from the hawkers must stop. It's demand and supply. So we need to do a lot of advocacy, and that's what we're on.
So that was the former Gender and Social Protection Minister Otiko Afisa-Jaba in Parliament waging a war of assault on begging. Did she win? We're yet to see. But today on the polls, we're speaking to a law student whose work has exposed the weakness in the system and is calling for reforms. We'll also hear from some beggars and givers as well as the Department of Social Welfare. And I'm sure you saw me begging also. I didn't make any strides. I only made 1 cedi 20 pesos. But I'll tell you what I used that for shortly. But let's start by taking a look at the law. We're having some background discussion here in the studios before I introduce my guests to you officially on what actually begging is. You know, there's a Beggars and Destitute Act. That's 1969. That's the NLCD 392. We are looking at Section 2. And it says begging to be an offense. 1. Any person found begging and any person wandering or placing himself in any premises or place for the purpose of begging may be arrested by a police officer without warrant and shall be liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 50 new Ghana cedis or to imprisonment not exceeding 3 months or to both. That same law also, Section 2, Clause 2, a person shall not be deemed to be begging by reason only of soliciting or receiving alms in accordance with a religious custom or the custom of a community or for a public charitable purpose or organized entertainment. So you know. And also we go on to Clause 3, the subparagraph 1 of this paragraph says it shall not apply to a juvenile nor to a collector duly authorized under the provision of the Public Collections Act. So the 1961 Act 59 or to any collection or person to which or to whom Section 5 of that Act applies. That's what our law tells us. I bet we have not paid attention to that part of our law, but yes, everything is covered under our law. So I go on to my guests in the studios this afternoon so that we talk about this rather interesting topic. Like I said, Silas Osei Boateng is president, Gimpa Civic Club and Justice of the SRC Club of Gimpa, Department of Social Welfare also, Subsidiary Legislation Committee. Mr. Richard Ajete joins us also in the studio. He's a social protection specialist with the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Thank you very much for your time here. Thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we're talking begging. I'm sure at the end of this program, we'll make sure that we don't stop people from giving alms, or we are not seeking to stop you from giving. But before we start the issue of begging, let me quickly go to my colleague Nancy Emefa-Jadosi. We'll begin the conversations with her. She's been out speaking to some beggars and givers. Here's what she found.
Every corner that you pass, there's a single phenomenon, and that is begging. But did you know that begging is a crime? According to the Beggars and Destitute Act, the giver and the receiver will pay a fine or spend up to 3 months in prison. We have been interacting with a beggar on the street, and she tells us though she knows it's a criminal act, she cannot move away from the street. Now, if you are here, what's na say ubisiska?
Oh, my ba anjere. Ba menya fukura menya
na den away free fear. Den na ma free fear obetina ha o stress ade.
Me yare, ani ahochire. Me ara me yare. Ntemeto e menteme na nte papa. So my brand and my brand so no when near you may enter as I know I want you to ana mesio te sa dia me kwa nkran ampa me ba ye no stress la kakra ana menya medidi
Entino ede wo wetena se unya ska hina ya unya
oh ya nya mom e bia no se meti wo hwe sika menya ye ni o enne na me ba ye sika menya ye no nje no
160 pesos and I was so far independent awenya
what's it
the whole day independent awenya
oh there bo ho ai te menya ba ya 10 cedi there bo ho ncha 15 cedi te menya na there bo ho so enya kura no ana ya bodos ya yete hoyi
nti so unya sika na eson de
na ba ya ndai o ni bi o man o ba ya manage sa
uni nkola obi eni ho be hwe
no le me ba
ba o tin fa
mete mo bebi a me fire pa na fire atabubu aye what is it buno line o fire chima na wo ko ho e wana me fire.
So she says that she's Mabiba, and she comes from Atebubu. She decided to come and sit here and beg because she fell sick and there was nobody to take care of her. Her only brother is unemployed and she didn't know how to survive, and so she decided to come and sit here and beg for money. And she tells me that the whole day so far she's been able to just make 1 Ghana cedis 50 pesos, but the day she's able to make sometimes 10 cedis, 5 Ghana cedis. Even though it's not enough, she feels that it is better than really getting nothing. Or unim say emrana e Ghana no omum pese anka obi abesra de nte ya wonsuro ma unim emrano
what's it
unim sa emrano say obi asra de o kwan na no
me no sante ya pamu ya ba sa ye hu o ma ne adwane nso wonya de obedi obaya ndan nte adwane ya kwa o mu kope ne asan aba
de na pese aban ye ma na de na o mo hwe de no mo nyema
oh me de wono Jese mo ankasa ana mo behu ne mo baya amame na me de mentime nchire.
So she says that she's aware that there's a law that prohibits beggars from sitting on pavements and on streets to beg for money. But she has no choice, she has no option, she has no helper. And so this is her last resort. Oh, there are others as old as Abiba on the streets of Accra. There are those who are supposed to also be in school, as little as 10-year-old. I met Amina, who says it's her wish to go back to school, but she has no means to do so. They find money. How much do you get? You get up to 10. So I'll be eating today. So if somebody wants to take you to school, will you go?
Ask my
You ask your mommy. So if your mommy say you won't go, you won't go. Why? Are you happy? Are you happy begging for money on the streets? So you want somebody to come and help you? So despite the knowledge that begging is a crime, people on the street have diverse concerns. There are those who think that giving is just helping somebody have a better life, and those who think and believe it's a criminal act and wants the government to step in and stop it.
For my side, I feel very bad, like a normal Ghanaian man supposed to be out somewhere nice and you'll be begging. Some of them, do you think it's the responsibility of the government to take look of those things, to take them off of the streets? Can't come in random over them, anything at all can happen to them. It's not about only the begging, but how we can cope with them to also, whatever they need. Some even need some advice, some to need some money to use to work. Because of there's no money in the system, it's part of it. So that's what I can also say to support the nation. So the government needs to do something about it.
Do you give them when they ask you for the money?
Oh, most of the time I normally give it to them because I'm a servant of God. So what I believe, the Bible says give. So anytime they come to me, I give it to them. But it's the time the government to take responsibility to it, to gather those people. Some of
them also do it genuinely because somebody is in need. You have to help, but those who have made it a business, I think that one is wrong, and that one should be stopped and should be checked.
Do you give the beggars when you meet them on the street?
Well, sometimes I do, because someone you see and you think it's genuine. The person is in need, and if you have to also help the person.
You know it's a criminal act to the extent that both the giver and the receiver can spend up to 3 months in jail.
Okay, well, I didn't know until Anas did the documentary where I learned both the giver and the receiver, it's a crime. So until then I didn't know, but now I know.
So you won't give them again?
Well, if I see the person and the person is really in need, I think I'll still help.
I don't remember the last time I gave money to a beggar, because there are some people I give money to, but they are not beggars. I don't give people on the street.
What do you think government? It's high time they take these people off the streets.
Yes, these people must be taken off the street, because when you go outside, you don't see people like that. When you go outside, you see just the homeless, but these people have turned this venture into a business setting. So I think this thing must be discouraged.
So that's Nancy Emefa Jadosi there interacting with some beggars on the streets of Accra. And let's have a look at this issue. And Silas Osei-Boateng and Richard Ajite are with me in the studios. We'll take a look at it. So Richard Ajite is a social protection specialist with the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection. And Silas Osei-Boateng is president, GIMPA, Civic Club and Justice of the SRC Court of GIMPA. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen, once again. And let me start with you, Silas. I've read your articles on begging and what you want done. I'm sure I need to read more on that. But let me first find out from you, exactly what are your concerns when it comes to begging? What really are the issues for you?
Okay, so my first issue is the law. That's the Beggars and Destitute Act 1969, seeks to criminalize begging. Now, if you seek to criminalize begging, it means that you want the beggars to be useful in the society. That means you are what? Reintegrating the beggars into the society.
Exactly.
So the first question one will ask is, has this law ever been enforced? That's not my interest. In my humble opinion, my interest is, can the law be enforced?
Can it?
It cannot be enforced, in my humble opinion.
Why is that?
Why? Because the explanation in Section 2 has actually even breached Article 1911 of the 1992 Constitution. Because Article 1911 of the 1992 Constitution states that no person shall be convicted of a criminal offense unless the offense is defined and the penalty for it is prescribed in the written law. Of course, there is a penalty for it. It's in the written law. We accept. But begging is not defined. Please, if I'm permitted to read Section 2, begging to be an offense. Any person found begging and any person wandering or placing himself in premises or place for the purpose of begging may be arrested. Please, they are using begging and begging. So if you read it, they are trying to generalize begging. So what is the lawmakers trying to say? What's the difference between begging my father for money to go to school?
Is that begging? If you're asking your father to give you money to go to school?
Please, if you read it, and what's the difference between a beggar who's asking for 1 cedi, 2 cedi? But the intention of the law is what? The beggars on the streets, because they said a police may arrest without warrant, and you are arrested without warrant when the offense is committed in your presence. So they're talking about the streets, because if it was your home, you need a warrant to make that search, unless when he committed in your presence, he actually absconded into a home before you can actually go inside.
But it defines it. It says without warrant. So even if you're begging somewhere and he sees you, can't he arrest you like the law is stipulating?
You can arrest on the street, but then you have to define what begging means. Because please, it's a crime, right? So if you arrest me and you take me to the court of law, my prosecutor has to identify the elements of what? Begging. So that he says that, my lord, he took money from Kwabena. My lord, he took clothing from Kojo. Then you as my defense counsel will come. My lord, he never took money in accordance with the law. My lord, he never took clothing. Then the Lord will, based on what you are saying, and make a judgment. But you said, any person found begging, and any person wandering or placing himself in a premises or place for the purpose of begging. So if I stand at Oponglo and I ask you, madam, I'm an illiterate, help me call my mother. I'm begging you because according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, begging is we're asking for something emotional way. I am begging you.
Overly broadening the issue about begging, because now the way you're putting it, so for me, today, for instance, I was on the street as part of preparing for this show. I went begging, okay, as part of it. So a policeman can arrest me, you're saying, that I was begging people. It took me, I actually had to beg about 5 cars.
Yeah.
The way I look, even me, I was not giving. I got 1 cedi, 20 pesos.
Good.
That's all I got from all begging 5 cars. Good. Beautiful. So, you know, so I'm wondering if I see you, Silas, and please, Silas, I need money or I need to make a call. How does that constitute begging? You think that's also begging?
Because according to the law, any person found begging and any person placing himself in the premise for the purpose of begging. So what do you mean by begging? Because please, when you are arrested, yes, but it's not certain. When you are arrested, we need to identify the elements of the offenses. Please, you get me?
Whether you are begging for money or you are begging for clothing, you are begging for food.
My lord, I'm the prosecutor. I saw him taking money, and in accordance with the law, money, when you are taking or soliciting money, you are a beggar. He was taking clothes. So please, I'll refer you to the India Bombay Prevention of Begging in India, how they define a beggar. Okay. They said, a beggar is any person soliciting or receiving money or clothes or other things given to a beggar in a public. So as a police, I know, okay, he was taking money. Okay, he was taking what? Clothes. You were a beggar. Then it was, you as my defense counsel come and say, no, Silas was not begging because he didn't take money.
He didn't take money.
He didn't take clothes. But you are saying begging. Who is a beggar? What is begging? Let us identify the elements so that I know that as an ordinary citizen, this is begging so that I don't breach the law. What's the difference between I asking you that my son is dying, please help me and take him to the hospital? I am begging you. So if you say begging, what do you mean by begging? Please, my humble opinion, identify the elements of begging, just as India did. So I know that if you are taking money or clothes, it is what? It is begging. Because the Constitution, the laws has to be certain in the country.
Let's bring in Richard at this point. Richard, so you've heard him. You are the social protection specialist. Begging. But before we even go into some of the issues that Silas is raising, this law that we are talking about, Beggars and Destitute Act, where a policeman can arrest for begging when you are found without a warrant, have we ever implemented it?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all your cherished viewers. Yeah, basically, the laws are there. The statute laws are there. But the question is the implementation. And that has been one of the core challenge with regard to this streetism approach. Begging is a component within the streetism concept. Okay. It's one of the categories that fall within streetism. In streetism, we have the street hawkers, we have the street aids, we have the street beggars, we have the destitute, mental persons with challenge, disability, people with a disability challenge, and then we even have commercial sex workers. They all fall within the concept of streetism. Okay. And begging is a very, very critical thing. When you look within the social protection paradigm, it's a very critical issue in that we are now having our social systems have been breaking down as a result of poverty. If we take Ghana, for instance, currently our extreme poverty population is about 10%. A majority of these people are people who cannot even meet their basic human needs. And so that forces most of them to come on the streets for begging. And so it's a breakdown of the social system as a result of poverty, and sometimes as a result of a breakdown of our extended family system. Again, so you find most parents either dead, one of them is dead, or both of them are dead, or in the issue of divorce. These are some of the indirect causes that push most of them to the streets. And so the begging is, yes, it's a criminal offense, but the question is that the social system to hold the people up so that they won't find themselves on the streets are breaking down. But
if you have a law like this saying, like Silas was saying, that begging openly is just vague like that, and if I even go to beg my family member, it's also considered as begging, then you're talking about the external family system. Who would give you once that also constitutes begging because the person risks being arrested?
You know, if you look at our social system we have, there's a need to take off one another. That's the system we have. Yeah. And so these begging concepts is a new phenomenon that is popping up as a result of streetism. And so, yes.
Is it a new phenomenon?
It's a new phenomenon. Currently, it has been a very long time, but currently, because the number of persons on the streets, currently in Ghana, we are having almost about 450,000 persons on the streets, including beggars. And beggars constitute almost 25% of it. And so that is the core issue we have now. And so that's the problem.
Is it a situation we can ever be able to handle?
Yes, the Department of Social Welfare, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, together with the Department of Social Welfare, have developed and established a project dubbed Operation Get Off the Street for Better Life. And this particular project have a specific core activities. One is to deliver, you deliver and identify a basic core services that will secure the reintegration of these persons on the streets into the mainstream of society. Okay. And then secondly, you have to strengthen our policies to address the causes like poverty, causes like that. Then thirdly, you have to strengthen the coordination mechanisms. There are so many institutions, MDAs, NGOs that are all on board managing or solving this issue of begging. But we need to coordinate the activity of these institutions, these MDAs that are managing these things.
So we have a central point at the Gender Ministry that's coordinating all this. Yes, how successful has it been, for instance?
The project was launched last year by Honorable Utiko Jaba, that last year, April, 2017 April. And from February to May, data was collected in Greater Accra. About 4,809 data was collected in Greater Accra, which have been analyzed.
Just Greater Accra?
Just Greater Accra. Greater Accra, we're having almost about 105,200 persons on the streets. Yes, so we have the begging issue and the streetism issue, a very huge social menace that we need to tackle. The number is keep on increasing each and every day. And so there's nothing you can do about it. That is the problem.
So for you, Silas, what are your expectations? What do you think can be done about the situation? Because implementing the law, it looks like it's a tall order. It's not going to happen. Because elsewhere, we know that people are on the streets as well. So what are your expectations in particular?
I address the expectation.
Okay.
I would like to quote Section 6. The law explained who a destitute is.
Okay.
So it means that begging also has to be explained. Please listen. A destitute is any person found wandering about and unable to show that he has any settled place of abode or any employment or visible or sufficient means of substance or has been neglected. They have defined destitute. So as a police, I can define, okay, a destitute is a person found wandering, he's roaming about. Okay. Okay, he has no settled place of abode. Okay, he's a destitute. Okay, he doesn't have any source of employment. Okay, he's a destitute. He has been neglected. Okay, who is a beggar? You didn't do that. Why do you do that for destitute?
So that's why we have Beggars and Destitute Act.
Yes, so you've explained only destitute. Why be left beggars?
And both the beggars and the destitute,
they are different.
They are all fall within the streetism.
The streetism. That's
but they can be different because
they are different because the destitute normally, most of them are aged persons. Most of them are aged persons or people who have been drug abuse, substance abuse. They normally form the category.
And you can have a beggar.
Yeah.
But why do you define destitute yet there's no definition for who a beggar is? And that's what Silas's concerns are. So for you as a ministry, for instance, how are you categorizing who a beggar is? Because you put all of them under streetism, you're saying.
Yes.
So who is a beggar then? Are you able to tell?
That would be the work of.
A beggar you see, the definition of beggar fall within the person who cannot meet his basic human needs, requirements, nutritional requirements, and who have less than 3 cedis a day.
So must they necessarily be on the streets to be in this category as a beggar? Because we have people who have this less than 3 Ghana cedis that you talk about, but yet may not be on the streets.
Yes, some of these persons on the street that we term as beggars are people who are emotionally or psychologically being abused.
Okay.
Or some of them whose parents are sick. Sick in the sense that they are either alcoholic or substance abuse parents, or parents who have any chronic disease. And so in many cases, you find these children attached to these parents being on the streets begging because there's no any help at home.
But it's pretty sad. You see a mother sometimes carrying twins or so, babies, breastfeeding, and they are on the streets begging. I don't know how we feel when we see such things on the streets. We have children who are supposed to be on the street. And you talk about streetism and you say we only collected data. What are we using that data for?
We after having our data, the data have been analyzed. And through the data, we even rescue about 100 children who have been reintegrated to their families.
They have?
It's a process. You see, the managing streetism involves 2 perspectives. Number 1, you have to do what you call unification. Unification means that you do the tracing. If you rescue the person from the streets, you do the tracing, and do the enrollment, and do the reintegration. The second component is linking to social protection interventions. We have a lot of social protection interventions in the country, like the Life Empowerment Against Poverty program, the Ghana School Feeding program is there. We have even the free SHS program as also social intervention.
Exactly.
We also have, so there's a lot of them that we have. The issue is that the linkage process, how do we link the vulnerable child or the vulnerable parent to that social intervention? That has been the core issue in Ghana now.
But we are told it's very lucrative also. So it's difficult for them to leave the streets. They enjoy what they do because we are told some people have been able to build out of it. Some people have commercial vehicles that are operating for them. Yet they are still on the streets because it's very lucrative.
What you are saying, they are all mythical stories.
They are?
Do you have any evidence for that? That is the question. Because nobody wants to live a life below a standard. And if I think we did what we call the qualitative interview with some of these persons on the streets, and you could realize that not all of them want to be there. It's a situation now that is forcing majority of them on the streets. So if we, as a government, if you're able to link these people to these social interventions, the employable opportunities and those the livelihood activities.
Be aware of the mandate.
The question is, it's not easy to manage streetism. And that is why some of us, as a specialist, we are talking that
how difficult is it?
It's difficult because each and every moment, the number keep on increasing. And these are the breeding ground for armed robbery, prostitutions, the spread of communicable, non-communicable diseases, STDs, you find with these people.
But some of them are known. You go to a particular spot in Accra, every single time you see them there. So sometimes it's not that difficult to trace them, is it?
They have thousands names. Each person have more than 1,000 names, 1,000 telephone numbers. You rescue the person from the street, you say, I'm called Kojo Mensah. You send the person to a shelter home. Within a day, you want to do the tracing, you find out it's not Kojo Mensah, it's baby Martin Kojo. So they have so ways of managing themselves. And what is helpful is that they have the bankers who monitor their activities for them. And so they, at the end of the day, they go in and pay to their bankers. As Anas also captured, this is a true fact. And so the issue is that we need a lot of thinking, a lot of logistics to go into the management of this streetism concepts. It's a very critical issue.
Unfortunately, we should be wrapping up this discussion. But Silas, quickly, you have concerns about this law and how come there are no definitions for beggars, for instance, whilst we have for destitutes. So quickly, your expectations.
My expectations is that, particularly, for example, Section 5 states that any person who permits or encourages another person to commit an offense may be arrested. That means if I give you money and you receive it, you commit an offense. But you should know that in sociology, like a model came states that a deviant act can never stop. So we individuals, if the purpose of the law is to criminalize begging, we mean that we are trying to integrate them into the society. That means government cannot do all. We individuals can also do it. So it's my humble submission as a law student, normal law student, that they should clarify who encourages begging. Because please, they should introduce intention. I can give you 200 Ghana cedi and I'll tell you, accompanied with words, go and buy sachet of water, sell at an authorized place. I have committed a crime, but then the crime, my intention has negated the crime because I want you to become a seller. You don't become a beggar again. I have helped the government.
You don't want to meet this guy in court when he becomes a lawyer one day. Silas, I'm grateful for your time. That's Silas Osei-Boateng, is President, Gimpa Civic Club and Justice of the SRC Court of Gimpa. We also had Richard Ajete. He's a social protection specialist and gender ministry, Department of Social Welfare. That's where he is. And the issue about begging will continue, but my Bible tells me give and they shall be giving unto you. So if now that this is a crime, I wonder what we will do. But we'll see how it goes, because if you're even begging your friend, we are told that the policeman can arrest you. But we're grateful for your time, gentlemen. You're still here on The Pulse with me, MFA.